It was billed as a day to safely dispose of hazardous household wastes in Toronto. But residents of the East Riverdale district used it as a platform to focus attention on hazardous soil in their yards. The story from Stu Patterson.
At one point, Toronto's first hazardous waste day took an unexpected turn. Demonstrators were seen heading here. They were carrying contaminated soil.
We've been told that they cannot accept our lead-contaminated soil.
Why not?
And what is your response?
Get the lead out! Get the lead out!
But the officials did relent.
Let's see the earth.
I think that we brought an awareness that we are concerned and that we're not going to give up.
Hey, how's it going? So that was a news clip of my mother, Laura Jones, raising a stink about the lead-contaminated soil in our neighborhood. And this is me in 1987, standing in front of the Canada Metal Company, aka Canada Metals. And this is a little video about how I learned my distrust for big business. Okay, so Canada Metals is what they called a fully integrated secondary lead smelter, which means they were breaking down products to extract the lead. The problem is that the plant was surrounded by a residential neighborhood, and the plant was emitting toxic dust in the form of lead particles. Local residents had been fighting for stricter pollution control at Canada Metals since the early 70s, but this story begins when my mother became involved in the issue, and by proxy, I became a poster child for getting the lead out of South Riverdale. Here they used a very old photo of me on the title page of an intensive study on the effects of lead contamination in the residential area surrounding Canada Metals. The report was conducted by the South Riverdale Health Centre in the spring of 1987 and presented to the Ontario Environment Minister at the time, Jim Bradley. It was written by Michael Rackless, MD, and included frightening statistics on the adverse mental and physical health effects of exposure to lead, and the steps needed to be taken in order to reduce the blood lead levels in local children. My brother Morgan wrote a community play about the Get the Lead Out campaign, which I performed in, sometimes begrudgingly, at various press conferences and community meetings. But when it was modified into a cartoon to be published in the Catholic worker publication The Moment, I did think it was pretty cool. About 15 years ago, people were getting sick for no reason. Then we realized there was lead in the air. Hi there! There was lead in the soil. There was lead in my toys. Ta-da! Ta-da! There was even lead in our blood. Ta-da! We need a public meeting! First we had to figure out where the lead was coming from. And it was coming from old paint peeling off houses. It's their fault! And from gas stations, it's their fault! And from metal factories, it's their fault! But they said it was the government's fault. Well, it's under investigation? Oh yeah?
Environment specialists have been pointing the finger at this plant as the main source of the lead pollution, Canada Metals, which recycles lead from batteries. Company President Peter Irwin maintains his factory isn't solely to blame.
It's been caused over 50 years at least of industries, public works, and automobiles emitting lead to various degrees in this neighborhood.
So we had a public meeting. And we had another public meeting. And another public meeting. So? Replace the soil? No. We're levels of 500 parts per million? No. To depth of 30 centimeters? No. Clean the houses too? No. Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we'll do it.
Queen's Park has given South Riverdale residents reason to celebrate tonight. The Ministry of the Environment will start removing contaminated soil from the area in 6 weeks' time.
Okay, get ready. Go.
Oh, who's that cute little kid shaking Jim Bradley's hand?
That announcement was made tonight by Environment Minister James Bradley, following a lengthy study on the levels of lead contamination in South Riverdale soil and the children who play in it. He said high emission levels from the Canada Metal plant on Eastern Avenue have resulted in elevated lead levels in the environment. The contaminated dirt will be dumped at either the Keel Valley or Brock Road landfill sites, which will most likely prompt local opposition.
I imagine they'll have some concerns, and I think we'll have to prove to them that this kind of soil is only a problem when it's in someone's backyards and getting under the fingernails of kids and getting into their stomach.
Soil removal will start at the end of July. 25% will be done by fall freeze-up, the rest next year, when the ministry hopes to be able to tackle other contaminated areas of the city.
Good evening. Environment Minister Jim Bradley has announced a project to remove lead-contaminated soil from properties in South Riverdale. CFTO's Ken Sherman reports.
There was an air of celebration at the opening of the South Riverdale Lead Project Community Office, a feeling that a 15-year battle had been won. Environment Minister Bradley announced that all residential properties in the area with lead levels of 500 parts per million or more will have the soil replaced. He estimated that 1,000 properties will qualify. The city and Metro have agreed to help fund the project, but the minister said Canada Metal Company, the source of the lead, has not yet agreed to make a meaningful financial contribution. He said that court action could result.
That's very difficult to say, and I wouldn't want to prejudge what the company may wish to do in the next short period of time, but if we have no indication of participation of any significant size, we would certainly be going to court.
The company says it's willing to discuss the issue, but
one of the big problems we have with this whole program is that the city and the Minister of the Environment have seen fit to replace the soil, even though their own advisors have stated that they can't predict whether it's going to do any good or not. And I find it very difficult to commit substantial funds of money for a program that its value cannot be proven.
the massive cleanup is expected to take about 2 years to complete. 200 houses will be done by the fall, another 800 by the end of October 1988. That's a projection that's clear-cut and easy to make. The tough ones are, will Canada Metal end up footing some of the bill? And if so, how much? Ron Azawa, CBC News, Toronto.
They got me so long. So it was a true success story after years of fighting. But what about the working conditions inside the factories? And what about the stink from soap factory and burning of PCBs? And what about the refuse-fired steam plant? Hi there. We need a public meeting. Well, the community did have more meetings, perhaps riding high on the success of the soil replacement project, and they decided it was time to demand more. And apparently now I was personally calling for the closure of Canada Metals. Never mind the fact that the photo was taken a couple years earlier, holding a blank sign, and I probably was not even aware of the article in the list of demands. It's no biggie. It's not like Canada Metals would attempt to sue a small community paper. Oh, wait. Yeah, they did actually. That's exactly what they did. And check out this list of statements that they say are libelous and defamatory. The inference that the battery crusher will pollute the neighborhood and will result in thousands of gallons of polluted water. The statement that Canada Metal must pay its share of the cost of the soil replacement project. The statement that the Canada Metal plant must be closed. Uh-oh. The statement that it is necessary to stop further pollution of Toronto's air and water? Seriously? Wow. So, as you can see here, the paper was quick to establish a defense fund against the legal challenge. Fast forward to 1997, and my image was still being used in connection with the lead problem. Here I'm seen playing in some presumably toxic soil, representing October, in a calendar put out by the South Riverdale Health Center. By this point I was actually a punk rock teenager, but hey. The calendar does have some interesting factoids, such as, did you know widespread lead poisoning in the Roman upper classes was thought to have contributed to the decline of the Roman Empire? And on this date, in 1974, the CBC special Dying of Lead was interrupted mid-broadcast because of an injunction brought by Canada Metals and Toronto refiners and smelters. A 1979 study showed children with high lead levels had lower IQ, shorter attention spans, language problems, and more negative ratings on classroom behavior.
Lead is capable of causing brain damage.
Okay, now Ben, I need a shot of the dirt in your mouth. March asks us, did we really get all the lead out? And gives us a brief history lesson hammering home the damage done with a depressing quote from Michael Rackless. These children did not achieve their full human potential simply because of environmental lead contamination. Great. And they also remind us that the owners of Canada Metals refused to contribute to the cleanup, despite being very wealthy. Now, the Conservatives took power in Ontario in 1995, led by Mike Harris, and March provides an interesting timeline to what that transition meant for Canada Metals. 1990, the Ministry of Environment and Energy launches a lawsuit against Canada Metal Company to recover the cost of the soil replacement program. 1995, enter the Conservatives. Canada Metal approaches the Ministry of Environment with a proposal that the province drop its $11 million lawsuit that recovers the cost of the lead cleanup. 1996, despite protests from the community, the Ministry of Environment drops the $11 million lawsuit against Canada Metals. Yup.
It's okay, Mr. Minister. This new lead-lined glass is completely soundproof.
Well, that's my story about our friendly neighborhood lead smelter, and my sometimes oblivious but seemingly ever-present role in the campaign to get the lead out of South Riverdale.